Hi, I'm Sanne from A Whole New High, and in this video I'll be talking to you about how we can integrate our psychedelic experiences. And in this video I'll be sharing what was beneficial for me to do to integrate my experience, and what I've also seen working with clients in private sessions and also at the retreats from A Whole New High, what was also really beneficial for them. So today I'm going to keep it really practical, so to share with you different things you can do that help you to basically create lasting changes in your life, so that a psychedelic experience is not just something once you undergo and then it just creates some shifts and changes and then you go back to life as usual. But to actually use all the insights and the awarenesses that you've gained from your journey, how to use it as fuel to actually create lasting changes. And this doesn't just happen in a day, this is usually a longer process, and that's why it can also be quite challenging. And I also, one of my favorite books would always be it's After the Ecstasy, The Laundry. And it's not necessarily specifically about psychedelic experiences, but it, for me, it really kind of explains that challenge that we have when we come back from these experiences, because we can go through these really challenging but also beautiful experiences that really shift something within us and it really changes us. But then when we come back, that our life can still be kind of the same and our environment that we come back to can still be the same. And to then actually integrate those insights into our imperfect lives, it can be really challenging. So what also in the books says, and this was something I want to share with you, is we are faced with the day-to-day task of translating that freedom into our imperfect lives. We are faced with the laundry. And I feel like the laundry, we could also see, kind of symbolizes the integration process, so that we can have these epiphanies and these great insights during our journey, psychedelic journey, or any other profound experience that we go through. And then the most difficulty lies in how we can actually integrate it into our lives. So in this video I will be sharing some things that you can do. And the thing that I first find that has been so extremely beneficial for me and really healing as well, and is the sharing and expressing of your experience. So to really share that experience with someone you trust, to be able to talk about it and speak about it. And this really can give you also new insights about your journey, or help you to see different connections that you didn't see before. And it can also be really heart opening to share such a deep, profound experience with someone. It can really create a really deep, beautiful connection with the person you're sharing it with. Um, and what I really find is that it is really important that the person that you're sharing your experience with is someone you trust, and also someone you feel safe with, because otherwise opening up doesn't really feel right and feel safe. So I would always recommend doing it with a therapist, but you can also do it with a friend or with a partner. Um, Only the benefit of doing it with a therapist, they're also usually to give you more professional support, so they're really trained into how to kind of react and respond in a certain way that's really beneficial for you. But you can have the same beautiful experience also with a trusted friend or partner. And what is then really important to know is that when you're sharing that experience, it's not immediately about finding solutions. So it's first then kind of the task for the other person who is on the receiving end of your story, that it's really about them for to openly listen. And we also call this deep listening. So instead of immediately coming with an answer, with a solution, with a reaction, like we do a lot in our day-to-day conversations, to really allow the person to fully express without immediately responding, and also allowing there to be pauses if that's needed, and that can really also create an even deeper and more healing sharing experience. And I find it, for me personally, it's always been really beneficial to write my experience down. And of course, it can also be very challenging at the same time, because sometimes it's really difficult to put it into words. So really know that when you write something down, it's more for yourself, as kind of as a memory. And you don't necessarily have to do something with it. And you can even just write like some insights instead of writing your entire journey, which can be difficult. And if you feel like writing might be really challenging for you, or isn't really something you resonate with, you can also just record um, your experience on audio. So you can just speak it into your phone or whatever you want to use, and then you can have the same effect, because it's going to be really nice that over time, in a few weeks, a few months, or maybe even a few years later, to read it experience again, or to listen to it. And I feel like that can be really, really powerful. And you can do this before you share it with another person or afterwards. It doesn't really matter. Really do and what feels best for you. Um, so yeah, what I also really loved was to actually create art, or some type of art, or some type of creative process after my experience. So this can be painting and, like I said, writing. But what I also, once a client of mine did, it's like, she's like, yeah, I don't really feel like drawing and painting. I find it quite difficult to do. So what she actually created was um, a Pinterest board, and later like a collage with all these different pictures and imagery that reminded her of her experience. So that's also a very cool thing you can do if that resonates with you. And I feel like after you've been able to share and express your experience, then it's really all about the commitment to the change that you want to make. And then it can be really beneficial to create an action plan, and also to create action steps that you can undertake, so to then make uh, the insights and awarenesses you gained from abstract, to make them really practical. So actually, what does it require of me to do? And then it's best to really write it down. But what I've also seen working with clients is sometimes we can get so many insights and so many awarenesses from our experience that it can feel kind of overwhelming to make all these changes and to do all these things. So I feel like you feel like if that is really something you're going through, then it can be really beneficial to just commit to one change at a time. To say like, okay, I've got so many insights from my experience, but what is for me most important right now? What is the greatest priority? And to then first to commit to that specific change, and then always later on you can always implement those other changes. But usually when we are most successful at achieving our goals and fulfilling our intentions is when we first of all take it one step at a time, so to make those action steps as small as possible, and also when we actually commit to one change at a time, because when we have to focus on all these different things, we lose a lot of energy and a lot of focus. And when we focus on one thing, that one thing gets all our energy and all our presence. So the chances of us succeeding making that change is a lot bigger, and that usually also can build more self-esteem, instead of feeling really overwhelmed by everything, and then we can maybe relapse again into old behavior, and then start self-blaming ourselves, which of course isn't beneficial at all. And it's also knowing when we really want to make, we have like a big commitment and a big change that we want to make, and this can especially when you might want to kind of change addictive behavior, for example. So when we go through that integration process, it's actually very common for us to have relapses. So then what can be really beneficial is to kind of already prepare yourself mentally beforehand. Okay, so if I'm going to fall back in old behavior, what am I going to do in those moments? So to basically already prepare yourself if a relapse into old behavior is going to happen. And usually when then that moment comes, when we relapse, we're actually usually a lot better able to deal with it, and also we are usually less judgmental of ourselves. And also know that falling back into old behavior is a part of the integration process, and it happens to most of us, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, and it doesn't mean that something went wrong. It just means that we still have more to learn, and that there's more things for us to become aware of. So if it happens that you relapse, you can then take that as an opportunity to actually become aware of what was causing it. So to really become aware of that pattern. Um, and the more we become aware of a certain pattern that we fall back into, also um, the easier it is for us to change it. And to know that commitment doesn't mean that we never fail or we never fall back, or that we never make any mistakes. Commitment basically for me means that even though we sometimes fall back into the old behavior, or even if we sometimes miss a day of practice, that the next day we can commit to it again and pour our energy into it again. And that commitment is more about the long run, right? So we all have our bad days, and it's a part of it. And I feel like a very important part of the integration process is also allowing yourself to be supported by other people. Um, because if you really want to make big changes in our life, it can usually be a lot more powerful, and we usually are a lot more successful at it when we include other people in that process. So also when you start creating that action plan that I mentioned before, is that sometimes it can be difficult to come up with certain solutions or things completely yourself. And at that time, it can be great to include other people into it and ask them for recommendations. And of course, when you're working with a therapist, they probably have plenty of recommendations for you, and because they've experience with it. But we can get great recommendations, basically from anyone who really genuinely wants to support us in this integration process. And also allowing yourself to be supported in all other kinds of ways. And to the integration process for me is also really in tuning to my own needs, and to really become aware of what is it that I want and need in my life. And knowing that you don't have to do that all alone, and that you can do that with other people. And that when things get more challenging and get more rough, and we all have our days, and especially when we want to create a big change, to then know that it's also okay to ask for help, and that asking for help is not something to be ashamed of, because we all need help at some point. And yeah, and that there are a lot of people that can help you in your experience. And another thing that I find extremely beneficial as well, aside from receiving support from people, from friends, therapists, and family, what has been really, really helpful for me is to create something that reminds me of my experience. So, like I said, this can be an art piece, but what I also found really powerful is, especially when you meet your inner child during a journey. So it can happen a lot, is that we meet a younger part of ourselves that's still hurt, or that a part of ourselves that we've just suppressed. And then when we go back to life, it can be easy to forget that part of ourselves again. So it can be great to create reminders, so to maybe have a picture of your child self when you were younger in your home somewhere. So every time you look at it, you're kind of reminded of it again. But it can also be a symbol, anything else that you want to put in your home that kind of symbolizes your experience and reminds you of it. And you can even also create a picture, like a background on your phone, on your screensaver, that also reminds you of it. And what I also loved is just to listen to music, the music that I listened to during my experience, because music can really provoke the same emotions again, and can be a great reminder of, okay, how did I really feel during that experience? and feelings can bring up a lot of memory. And so yeah, and also the last thing that I really want to share with you as well is how important it is to have an anchoring practice. So what I mean with an anchoring practice is something that keeps us grounded, and that we are, a lot of times when we come back from our experience, we're back to, for a lot of it's a very stressful life, where there can be a lot of challenges and a lot of things triggering us, and which can make us feel very unstable. And because we can become really unstable because of that, it can be a lot more difficult to make the changes that we want to make. So, a very important anchoring practice for me, for example, is meditation. So, I always meditate in the morning, and it helps me to start off my day kind of fresh, and also helps me to start off my day being really attuned to myself, to my needs, to my inner world, and to how I really feel. And it really also anchors me throughout the rest of the day. So if little things come to me, of course, it's still little or big things come to me, it still affects me, but it doesn't bring me down as much. And another practice for me is, for example, walking in nature and spending time in nature. For me, that's extremely grounding, and it helps me to be more strong, more rooted in my day to day life. And it can also help me to bring me back to my own truth. So for you, it might be another practice, but it can be great to really find something you want to commit to after your journey, and it can really support you in really integrating your own psychedelic experience. So if you have anything else, like any other things that really helped you with integrating your psychedelic experience, feel free to use the comment section below and just let us know what helped you. And also, if you have any questions about the integration process itself, you can also just leave a comment down below and we would love to answer it. And if you're really interested in having a psilocybin experience in a very safe environment, and also having support in that integration process afterwards, feel free to go to our website, awholenewhigh.com, and we're all trauma integration practitioners who specialize in the integration process, and you can join one of our shift retreats or have private sessions if that's something you prefer. And also, if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out, and more details can be found on awholenewhigh.com. And I also want to wish you a beautiful week, and I want to thank you so much for watching this video.